Black thoughts. Black thoughts. Drowning in a sea of black thoughts. I wish that I could take it all away. The confusion, the distinction, the willful ignorance. I wish that there was a way for us all to exchange eyes for a moment. And maybe then we would see, maybe not. Truth no longer seems to be a cure for much. Still, I can't help but wish. I wish for my younger brother. With the birth of your son approaching, the state of America has you wondering if there's a better place for your family. No one can blame you for searching for a utopia of sorts, which would allow you to feel a bit more confident in the future. A place where you'd be unquestionably respected as a man. Where you'd never need to fear that harm might come from those that are sworn to protect you. There may actually even be a place where you can walk the streets as a royal, as long as you see yourself as one, where it'd be impossible to have that identity destroyed by another. However, I hated explaining that finding home for an African American is more elusive and complicated than it seems. And although Marcus Garvey and others make a strong case for repatriation, sadly, no true heaven on earth exists for us, whether here or in Ghana. A plane ticket might offer you more dignity, but in many ways it also becomes a forfeiture of what is due to you. Our ancestors helped build this country for free, so it's only fair to want for black liberties to match the black investment here. I agree with you, though. I long for the same place, the same utopia, but I just don't know that we'll ever see it. I wish that I didn't have to ask for forgiveness for betraying my daughter. Sweet girl, you're the embodiment of Dr. King's dream. And God knows the weight of the instruction I'll need to impart to you. In America, black people have historically been labeled as unsanitary subhumans. White skin seen as a sign of purity, black skin a sign of filth and disease. Mixing of the two bloods denounced as race pollution. You would think that these stereotypes would be dead by now, especially after a black boy's body in the wrong swim zone launched Chicago's Red Summer. But to this day, there remains the expectation that black children, multi-ethnic or not, will always be grungy, unkempt, and disheveled. Thoughts of this stereotype may have affected how much I've scrutinized how you look whenever you leave our home. I naturally care about your appearance, but honestly can't tell how much these thoughts influence me. And Lord, the racism associated with grades of hair haven't vanished either. America has kept alive the notion that to have straight hair is to have white hair, and to have white hair is to have good hair. Your curls, thought to be a negative side effect of you having a black father. A young lady in college once told me that she would consider marrying me if she could figure out who would manage our children's hair. A person that's more dear to your mother and I than family once congratulated us after seeing your hair and ponytail, saying, "Thank goodness she got good and straight hair. You must be so happy. Thank goodness." I'm so sorry if I've ever stripped away from you the freedom of being a child. Be free, sweet girl. Smile wide as you eat watermelon in the sun. Spin endlessly in your juice-stained dress. Tumble in your wild and loose curls and run, my dear. Run with bare feet without caring who sees you. It's summertime in the South. Black thoughts flood my mind. I see a neighbor tending to his lawn, cooling off a bit by working shirtless. And I'm nearly positive that more than a few neighbors would only see a thug if I did the same. For that, and 100 more reasons, I'll just sweat a little more while making certain that my lawn is as close to perfectly manicured as possible. Although I find the work somewhat therapeutic, I also can't allow anyone to look and say,
"See, I told you, black people just don't take good care of their property."
We were blessed to see this home built before our eyes. I'll never forget one of our first greetings. We met the sweetest grandparents as they pushed a sleeping toddler along.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
We're the Joneses.
We spoke about raising children and the excitement of a new home.
Oh, here's our daughter.
Say hello to Dwayne.
Hi.
Which house is yours? Oh. Which house is yours? Oh my gosh. Too cute. I love it. We'll have to do martinis sometime when you guys move in.
She was certainly more excited about a house with better curb appeal, but
It's nice to meet you.
I couldn't help but wonder if she was letting me know in a not-so-subtle way that I was a stain upon her neighborhood. Is the grass green enough? Greener. Greener. Black thoughts. I wish that I could simply go for a walk without needing to wonder if I look suspicious. Do I need to put on shoes that don't look too urban? Not those. There we go. I didn't shave today. Definitely need a haircut. It's probably best to wear a hat then. All right, hats. I should just avoid any loud colors. Definitely not the red one. Maybe a bike ride is better than a walk. Your intentions would be more obvious. You're working out. This is turning into a costume. I just want to go for a walk. I want to clear my head. No music, no bike, just a walk. I should still be careful about what I wear, especially since lots of moms may be walking right now. Grab your ID too, just in case. You never know. Forget it. I'll just sit on the porch and not have to worry if it looked like I glanced too long into a window or into an open garage. There were some cars broken into recently, and maybe it's best to let a few days go by before walking anyway. Cool, the porch it is. But now I'm a billboard for my home, and to some, a billboard for Black homeowners as a whole. So the way I look today is still going to matter. It's crazy that in so many ways, I'm not seen as Dwayne, I'm seen as Black people. Black thoughts. Listen to that, the voice of another critic.
You shouldn't care what people think.
Shouldn't care what people think.
You shouldn't care what people think.
Hello, this is
Not
Amy
caring.
Cooper.
What a luxury.
I live in
Because
Magnolia
one erroneous
Hills.
phone call from a
Where is
concerned
my
citizen
man?
could cost me everything.
Can you come out here to Magnolia Hills? Should I follow him? So you know where he is?
Black thoughts. I wanted to tell the lady in that parking lot today, and every lady in every parking lot, that I can hear it when the doors lock as I walk past. And I almost wanted to start a constructive dialogue with the 3 different groups of people in that store that flagged me down as I shopped. Apparently, being in such a nice store certainly meant that I had to be an employee. I'm so sorry, ma'am, I don't work here. I'm so sorry, I don't work here. I don't work here. I'm so sorry, ma'am, I don't work here. Would they be offended if I tried explaining that I was offended? Even in my Sunday's best, I still have to go an extra mile to be seen in a different light. I took the dive, and I read the Cornerstone speech, along with countless other articles outlining Southern motives, and was blown away by how blatant the Confederates' reason for secession was. It's so odd that the subject is even still up for debate. If Hitler had the United Daughters of the Confederacy pushing his lost cause, he might still be held as a hero too. Maybe the world could have also been convinced that the Jews were happy prisoners. Maybe the world would have even fought for a Jewish woman to keep the Nazi-given honor of representing that happiness on a box of pancake mix. How? I listened to slave narratives as they described their bones being broken from toil, fields where their brown skin was brought to a boil, their children sold for pocket change before their eyes, and of the women who were forced to open their bodies for a master's pleasure. It's hard to process the thought of a woman and her daughter being raped simultaneously in the same room while their husband and father picked cotton nearby. I learned of how slaves were set free from plantations to the winds and rains of poverty and hopelessness, only to be returned to plantations as exploited and enslaved sharecroppers, who would later become exploited and enslaved leased convicts on plantations, who would over time just become exploited and enslaved laborers in public and private prisons. I educated myself on the Jim Crow laws that upheld segregation, on the realities of redlining, the injection of drugs into poor neighborhoods, war on those drugs that was really a war on the poor, the mass incarceration, and on the repeated assassination of Black leaders. With every revelation, I'm only more perplexed by the indictment against an entire ethnicity for not doing better. I hear the narrative concerning Black-on-Black violence and wondered if people were curious about how that violence came to be. I wondered if people would care to hear about the side effects of having hope, history, culture, language, an entire identity stripped away, only to be replaced with stereotypes based on false science that were created in order to justify oppression. Would people want to know about the side effects of a man having to take on a slave master's last name and being forcibly made to pass down an anti-inheritance to his future generations? They are stripped bare, left blank. A man with no history has no context. Without context, he has no self-worth. With no self-worth, he cannot love himself. And if he cannot love himself, he cannot love his neighbor. And if he and his neighbor have arrived at this same desolate place where their humanity has been robbed of them, neither will have much motivation for living. And I see those men, old friends, former classmates, even family. I see them hungry because their wages don't leave much money for food, sick because the meals they can afford rush their bodies toward a grave, aimless because it's nearly impossible to see beyond the invisible cage that is the ghetto, frustrated but incapable of articulating their hurt thanks to an education system that leaves them with a strangled vocabulary. There they find themselves focused on survival, not on living, but on surviving. And when despair enters a heart, rationale usually leaves it. A perfectly crafted recipe for crime, heavy penalties for crime, then turn into shattered homes and the circle goes round and round. And I wondered if hearing of these things would be impactful to people. But I've become discouraged, realizing that there isn't much of an ear for the topic. Tragically, it's a problem that can only be cured with the aid of a contextual perspective, but many will dismiss it as a list of excuses. Instead, day after day, I hear the yelling, "What about black-on-black crime?" And I weep as I think of a group of people that have been masterfully and intentionally molded into another instrument for their own destruction, while the oblivious keep referring to bootstraps. There will be no pity on them, no ear for their plight. Judgment upon judgment shall be the reward for not mustering the strength to lift themselves from the well-crafted mire. And should they think to lash out after being fed a steady diet of neglect and hatred, they will be immediately vilified and used as an example to strengthen the stereotypes. No concern for the hows or for the whys, that's fine. I just hope that at least a few will see that black people are too often the only ones serving time for on-black crime. Black thoughts. So many misleading statistics on how many black citizens are unjustly killed by cops. It's deflating to see population percentages conveniently not taken into account on those copy and pasted Facebook graphs. While black men and women with price tags on their ears become propaganda tools that are all too happy spewing misinformation for clicks and likes. It's admittedly powerful though, because if a black person said it, then it must be true. Would it help if we all knew the unedited stories behind every American life taken due to racism? If every American knew about all of the Frazier Bakers of past and present? I wonder if we just knew the real numbers of how many false rape accusations led to police-assisted lynchings. Would it grieve Americans to know that family photos were taken in front of the hanging corpses? Or that body parts of those lynched black men were sold and kept as souvenirs? Would knowing any of those stories or numbers give us all a better understanding of what's going on now? With so much history buried with the bodies, attempting to land on an accurate death count would probably be futile, especially since the lifeless black bodies found hanging from trees this year have all been listed as suicides. It's tragic. We can't even seem to get the Tulsa massacre numbers right. Maybe someday we could at least stop calling it a riot. And it's crazy that the KKK even boasts of how many members throughout history have assisted them while serving as officers and even presidents. They still aren't even listed as a terrorist group. Black thoughts. I want to tell the world that taking a knee is a sign of humility far more apparent than a hand on a chest. I want to point to the absurdity of thinking that asking for respect is disrespectful. I want to explain how making people think that kneeling dishonored the military was just like a street magician making a person look at the cards in his right hand while he takes their wallet with his left. I want to explain how not guilty verdicts tell innocent black victims and their families that they don't matter, especially when innocent black victims are so often found guilty. I want to explain how a free George Zimmerman peels back more than the Rodney King scab. I want to explain that every time I see a peaceful protest, I thank the Lord that black Americans still haven't chosen to emulate the angry white mobs that were rounded up in order to carry out murder as revenge. Wait. Shut up and dribble, Dwayne.
Shut up and dribble. Shut up and dribble.
I want to buy my wife a piece of jewelry without being paranoid about the visibility of my hands at all times. I want to be able to leave a tip that's actually based on the service I received, instead of feeling the need to tackle the racism of waiters who decided to pay less attention to my table the moment that they saw me. Because if I don't tip well, black people don't tip well. But is it helping anything to hand them unearned dollars in an attempt to break one ridiculous mindset at a time? I think of my father chanting, Uhuru. Through a child's eyes, I saw you as a madman. Now I'm coming to understand you were possibly just a man maddened. Thoughts of the FBI's COINTEL program that took your friend Akua's fiance made you paranoid. While thinking of her hearing that her Fred was good and dead probably pushed you over the edge. 99 shots toward a man who was drugged to sleep in his bed as he lay paralyzed next to the woman he intended to wed. 99 shots, 2 bullets point blank to the head. 99 shots to make sure that he was good and dead.
The mattress is just going, you could feel the bullets going into it. I just knew we'd be dead, everybody in there. The person who was in the room, they kept hollering out, stop shooting, stop shooting. We have a pregnant woman or a pregnant sister in here. At the time, I was 8.5 to 9 months pregnant. My baby was to be delivered in 2 weeks. Pigs kept on shooting. Heard a pig say, he's barely alive, he'll barely make it. I assumed they were talking about Chairman Fred. So then, they started shooting the pigs, they started shooting again. I heard the sister scream. They stopped shooting. Pig said, he's good and dead now. The pigs running around laughing. They were really happy, you know. Talking about Chairman Fred is dead. I never saw Chairman Fred again.
I can hear the concern in my mother's voice when she tells me, be careful, Dwayne. When black men speak up too much, they become targets too. And she has a point. But I'll be all right, Mom. I'll be all right. Black thoughts. I want officers to break their fraternal code of silence that supersedes righteousness and too often protects them from justice. I want them to imagine a world where they combat evil wherever they find it, even if it's infected their own heart or also wears a badge. I want them to realize that they're dealing with a traumatized people. History will tell them why. Because the form of our oppressors shifted from slave owners to police officers and from police officers to public officials. They are managers and CEOs. Everywhere we look, there are people in positions of power that have been taught to hate us and have the power to hurt us. When we look at you, we simply hope that there are no remnants of Nazism found in your eyes. When you exercise your authority, we ask that it's done with a sober heart, instead of in the way the slave master would be seen dominating his servants. We're asking for you to always see before you a human, even if it is one that has lost his way. Society needs caretakers as much as it needs enforcers. We just want you to choose the cape of a hero instead of the invisible cloak of a modern Klansman. Maybe someday we might even see infamous officers, corrupt corporations, and crooked politicians dealt the same sentences as criminalized minorities. Does all crime matter? What if every officer truly believed that all of mankind was created in God's image and in God's likeness? What if even the worst criminals were encountered as earthly versions of God himself? What if we all saw each other as gods? Small g, of course. I think of the brown soldiers that fought America's wars, but got shipped home in pieces, many in mental body bags, back to a land without freedom, no honor or respect even for Henry Johnson and his Hellfighters. There so many of them are, still waiting in line to truly feel the fireworks of a July 4th. Denied the promises of the GI Bill but handed PTSD, poverty, and prescription addictions instead. I wonder if America stopped caring about COVID-19 because it's mainly wiping out the elderly, the poor, the Black, the Hispanic, and the Native American people that America stopped caring about. Black thoughts. I feel a familiar sting. It's another loved one saying that racism doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. That statement diagnoses me with paranoia. It prescribes silence as a cure. And I'm not sure what's more offensive, the amnesia or the blindfold. Racism doesn't exist. But I can't forget the school teacher that laughed as I begged to go to the restroom. I see her unfazed as my begging nearly turned to sobbing. I remember the confusion of watching a pretty white girl ask the same, receiving a sweet answer of, "Yes, dear." I remember that teacher looking me in the eyes as I watched my classmate walk by. The words echo in my head. "Fine, go if you can make it." I remember the humiliation of running down that hallway, a demoralized teenager with urine-soaked pants as I asked myself what I had done to make her hate me so much. I think back on the teacher that refused to accept my homework until I was removed from honors math. I remember her reason for repeatedly refusing my work.
"I just can't read your handwriting."
Repeatedly hearing that was agonizing, knowing that I had obsessed over every stroke of the pencil, taking hours to complete what should have only taken minutes, writing while trying to focus through the tears and confusion, making certain that my penmanship was impeccable.
"I just can't read your handwriting."
I remember the sound of the red X going across the entirety of my paper, wondering, what does this lady want from me? My name and academic excellence had been synonymous throughout most of my schooling, until I was robbed of belief in my ability to be brilliant. Earl Warren said that a sense of inferiority affects the motivation of a child to learn. In that teacher, I saw that truth weaponized against me. At some point, a broken child just stops trying. That was the goal, I suppose. I remember the lights circling behind the car, feeling as though it was my fault that we got pulled over. I was told, don't turn around to look at them. They'll think you're being suspicious. I couldn't help it. The fear made me turn. I hear the officer's words.
"Y'all want to get out of here? Why don't y'all sing something? Can't y'all sing? Go ahead, sing something. Little harmony or something. How about a dance?
It was a movie scene brought to life. Just imagine the boogeyman asking a child paralyzed in terror to sing him a song. I see him reveling in the power to torment. And I remember the officer that stopped my wife and I in the parking lot of our apartment complex in order to conduct a safety check. Our joy was so powerful before that moment.
"Everything all right, miss? Just want to make sure you're not in any danger."
That cop was implying that seeing my wife in the car with me was like seeing the Mona Lisa hanging in a barn stall. It would take me years to fight off those thoughts of inadequacy. I think of the mother that stormed into my gymnastics class, nearly breaking her daughter's arm as she snatched her from the floor.
"I'll never let one of you put hands on my child."
And I think of the 4-year-old that told me to hang myself like the lady she saw. Jesus, what did that baby see? And I remember being told that my athletes would score higher if their Black coach wasn't standing next to them at competitions. The girls wouldn't understand why I stopped traveling with him, but the scores definitely went up. And I remember the guy on the back of that grip truck who hoped to demotivate me by calling me boy before sending me on an errand, and the AD that tried to overwork me out of the film business. And I think of all the times that a person mustered enough hatred to call me a nigger. That word never stops echoing. Ever. I think of these and countless other interactions that began to make me resentful and distrustful. I remember my self-esteem plummeting and anger beginning to replace it. I remember. Or do I? Yes, racism doesn't exist. All playing fields are equal. Racism doesn't exist. The media and the fake news make up these lies. Racism does not exist. You won't have problems with police if you're not breaking the law. Racism does not exist.
It was just my imagination running away with me. It was just my imagination running away with me.
Black Thoughts. I think of the blood that was spilled for my ballot, but does my bloody ballot still have any power? I'm so sorry, Miss Fannie Lou, I'm just not sure anymore. Politicians and presidents seem to be for sale to the highest bidder, and my ballot says no cash value in bold writing on the back. I wonder if the system is beyond repair. The Chicago Tribune wrote an article that said to give no quarter to wild beasts, speaking of the Black Panthers. Well, I read Senator Tom Cotton regurgitate the evil no quarter rhetoric as well. We should all know what that saying means, no quarter. It's a call for war crimes to be carried out on American soil against American citizens. It meant that recent protests were to be primarily viewed as riots, and that the punishment for rioting should be death. It was a call for public street executions instead of trials, executions for misdemeanors. No jury, none needed. Break a law, breathe your last. Got a record, then they've got a better reason. Hands up, you're just a wider target. Comply or die, or comply and die. I wonder why senators never called for civilians to be murdered during sports riots. I wish that progress from peaceful protests wasn't so easy to steal. I wish that the American history taught in schools wasn't whitewashed. I wish that truth was mandatory. What if students cried in classrooms over the Native American plight and had philosophical conversations about the social significance of Nat Turner or Denmark Vesey? I wish that Americans could see that the current red versus blue political party system leaves us choosing between rotten fruit and rotten fruit. I wish that everyone could see that there is no political party called Christian. We are to choose one, a bullet to the head or a bullet to the heart. And as a Black man that loves the Lord, I find myself politically stranded. Wisdom tells me that conservative no longer means Christian and that democratic policies haven't been pro-Black. I suppose that it's time to do something about that. I wish that our president was presidential and was less prone to perjury. I wish that he embodied at least one of the teachings of Christ. I wish that he wasn't the supreme leader that racists have been praying for decades as he offers some very fine people the race war of their dreams, one tweet at a time.
White power! Yes, there you go, white power. You hear that?
And I wish that my fellow Christians had the vision to see the evil face of a racist, even when it looks like their own reflection. I wish that the weight of what needs lifting wasn't so heavy. Black thoughts, like a waterfall, crashing. The sound almost deafening. But in the distance, I begin to hear weeping alongside our weeping. Our cries mixed with the voices of unjaded youth and of awakened allies. And slowly coming into view are a million complexions of hands reaching toward the base of this terrible mountain, somehow believing that it can and shall be moved.